let's get going here. Lord, bless us and help us with this last thing that I'm going to talk about, and help us to get whatever it is you want us to get, because, Lord, I didn't pick this message, and you told me to talk about it, and I pray that you'd help me. In Jesus' name, amen. So I just have to tell you, when I was working on this message, at first, we were in the motorhome, and Rachel was, I shouldn't have said Rachel. Sorry, Rachel. Rachel was still at home, and I'm on my computer working, and I put the title in, and as she would walk by, looking like this over her shoulder to see, and it's called The Married Thing. She thought, I wonder what that's all about. But anyway, it's actually a Bible topic. So I thought we would talk about it, but the Lord really put his finger on it, so it wasn't me. I have lots of other messages I could have done. But I also, it was really funny, we were in the motorhome, well, we've been in the motorhome a long time, but I was teaching my kids physiology out of a college physiology book, because I find it fascinating. And I think that the more you know about the human body, the more you can help when your kids are sick and stuff like that. Like, I know where germs come from, I know how to stop germs, I know the path through the body, I learned stuff like that. And but there was a couple chapters at the end that I didn't want my girls to read. So, because they were not married. So I didn't want them even thinking about things like that. So I said, don't read the last chapter. It was really one. But later, when that person was going to get married, I was going to have to talk about it with my daughter. And I said, well, we need to talk about the married thing. And she goes, Mom, I have to confess that I did read that chapter. It actually was a blessing. Some things are hard to describe, but we're going to try to just keep it at a good level here. But anyway, the key thought for today is there's three basic things that we need to remember about the married thing. And that is that, let me put my glasses back on, it's all a smear. Okay, so the three basic things to remember in finding God's blessing and personal enjoyment in marital lovemaking is, number one, intimacy is good and is designed by God. Number two, it's supposed to be mutually enjoyable. Number three, it is based on giving rather than receiving. In the Hebrew, if you were Jewish, they have their ceremony when they get married is called Kedushin, which means consecration. And they consecrate to each other in that marriage ceremony that they will have a lifetime of companionship and sexual enjoyment. So that's all part of that. It might be kind of embarrassing with your in-laws and everybody sitting around, but they do. Thankfully, it's in Hebrew. But no. So let's go to Hebrews 13:4. There are actually verses on this kind of thing, ladies. Marriage, Hebrews 13:4. It says, marriageable, a new word. No, marriage is honorable in all, and the bed undefiled. Anything about marriage is good, but anything outside of marriage, when it comes to this subject, it says, but whoremongers and adulterers God will judge. Okay? So everything about marriage is good. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 7. First Corinthians 7. We're going to read right here. Now concerning the things whereof you wrote unto me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. The wife hath not power of her own body, but the husband. And likewise also, the husband hath not power of his own body, but the wife. Verse 5, defraud ye not one the other, except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer and come together again. Oh, look at this really serious part here. That Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. And I'm sure you can understand what incontinency means by the surrounding verses. It means you don't, when you're not having a marriage relationship, then there's a big door for the devil to get in your marriage. So these verses are important. Let's go to, well, I'll just read this one. Genesis 3:16, we already read. It said, thy desire shall be to thy husband. Again, it's your husband. It's not your boss or somebody at work. It's your husband. Thy desire shall be to thy husband, not a movie star. Okay, let's go to Song of Solomon 7:10. Song of Solomon 7:10. It says, I am my beloved's, and his desire is toward me. And in the Bible, the word for sex is know, right? Adam knew his wife. This knowing, and it's kind of weird in the way we talk, but this knowing starts on your marriage night and continues your whole marriage. And this is how we learn about our husbands, about their private selves and their emotions and their desires. And in times of duress, it says like 5 places in the Bible that the marriage relationship is a comfort. Like, I think it was Isaac was comforted after his mother died and when they had a marital relationship. And so it can help you relieve stress, and it helps us to reconnect. Don't you think? It helps us to get back to what it is that marriage is all about. So let's go to Ecclesiastes 6:9. In Ecclesiastes 6, verse 9, it says, we're talking about desiring our husbands here. Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the desire. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit, that wandering of desire. The desire in your marriage is supposed to be to your husband exclusively. Better to be content with what you have than your desire to be wandering around thinking about what you don't have. Like I said before, that opens the door for a huge problem when you are not content with your husband. A woman can become discontent in her marriage by thinking another man is more romantic. If somebody comes in with a corsage on Valentine's Day and you didn't get anything, or something, you think, oh, they're so romantic. And you might start to think that things that you ought not to, or think that would be, I wish my husband was like that. But, she comes in and brags about this or that, and it can cause you to start having feelings of discontentment. If your desire is wandering away from your husband, you are not spiritual. That is not a spiritual thing. It's a wrong thing. It's an ungodly thing. And so if you're having that kind of problem, then you need to get that thing fixed. You are not having a God-honoring marriage. And so let's look at this thing. Let's go to what the marriage should be, the marriage relationship should be. We already read Hebrews 13:4, that marriage is honorable in all and the bed undefiled. Let's go to Genesis 18:12. Genesis 18:12 says, therefore, now this is, I don't know if I need to explain what's going on here, but Abraham's just been told that Sarah's going to have a kid, and she's really old. She's probably going, oh no. Can you imagine waiting all that time for a child? And then it finally happens. That's a long wait there. Let me go back here, 18:12. It says, therefore, Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? She said, hey man, it's over for us. But the Lord can do anything, and he did. The answer is yes. Yeah, even when you're old, it's still good, that's for sure. Proverbs 5:19. Proverbs 5:19. Proverbs 5. Let me just look at something here. Okay. Proverbs 5:19 says, let her be as the loving hind and pleasant roe. Let her breasts satisfy thee at all times, and be thou ravished with her love. So you need to underline loving, pleasant, supposed to be pleasurable, the marriage relationship. Loving, pleasant, active, I guess. A roe's kind of an active animal. Satisfy, you're supposed to be satisfied all times, ravished with her love. Notice, all of these words are to show us that the marriage relationship is to be a place of gratification. So you need to underline those words. And then let's go back to 1 Corinthians 7:4. And you know, you can say, a lot of times we'll say, well, that's Old Testament. Well, this is not Old Testament here. 1 Corinthians 7:4. And we already read over these, but let's look at verse 4. The wife hath not power. Okay, that's not what I wanted. Let's go to 3. Let the husband render or give unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. So benevolence means a desire to promote happiness. And this desire to please is to be both for the husband and the wife. It says likewise, right? It's not saying just for the man. It says likewise. God expects both the male and the female to derive pleasure from the marriage relationship, not just the man. And it says do. Look at that word D-U-E. The do. Let the husband render unto the wife due. It's due. It's owed. It's a right of marriage. Sexual pleasure is a marriage right, like the Bill of Rights, and is something to be worked on. If you have no pleasure in the marital relationship, the blessing is that there's always room for improvement. A relationship can change and get better, and you can grow in your love for each other. And some things take time, and some things, I know some ladies who use the marriage relationship as a weapon against their husbands, and that is not right to use it. One lady was mad at her husband. She said, well, he's not going to have a relationship with me for a month over that. And I went, well, aren't you hurting yourself? Right? Shouldn't just be in one way anyway, but some things that can cause a problem could be your attitude and being mad at him, right? Or unforgiveness and jealousies. And I don't know if you know what the word libido is, but it means you just don't have a desire. You kind of have a low, maybe you need some hormones or something. But you know what I mean? Like someone says, well, I just have a low libido. So I didn't quite understand that, but I was listening on the radio and someone said, you know, this guy was saying it. He goes, I just don't even think about it. It never occurs to me. And my wife is there waiting and waiting and waiting, and I'm just, I mean, it's not like he's being mean or using it against her, and he just doesn't even think about it. So maybe he needs to mark his calendar. Mark your calendar for whatever the frequency is. That's an issue couples have to get involved with, is how often. For each person, each couple is going to be different. So, you know, some people say, I have a headache, or they wear their ugly football jersey, and that means no. They don't even have to ask, right? Right, do not wear your ugly football jersey. But how about saying I'm tired? Well, go to bed earlier the night before, or get some rest during the day. I was trying to find this quote in an old recipe book. Maybe you know where it is. But there was in the old Betty Crocker, it said, now right before your husband gets home, make sure that you maybe change your clothes and put some perfume behind your ears and comb your hair. And it was so sweet, because we don't even think like that. David said, in a recipe book? What does it mean, a recipe book? I said, well, they were trying to help ladies be better homemakers. I mean, it had across there. I mean, this thing is falling apart, Betty Crocker. And it says, home is where the heart is. And it's just it was just a whole different day and time. But maybe we could learn from some of that stuff. And I thought that was, it said, if you're tired, just lay on the floor for 5 minutes. So they have this lady in a dress laying on the floor. Or stretch out in a chair and put your feet up just for 5 minutes, and you will feel rejuvenated. And I just thought that was really sweet. So yeah, that exhaustion can get in the way. Bitterness can get in the way. Let's go to Colossians 3:19. It says in Colossians 3:19, it says, husbands, love your wives and be not bitter against them. Okay, why are they bitter? That's my question. Anybody have an answer? Why are they bitter? What do you think? I mean, come on, we could come up with some stuff. We are talking about the marriage relationship, so I read that into it. But anything at all that's their due. You know, we want our due, D-U-E, but anything that's their due, any benevolence or any kind of kindness, compassion, companionship, anything like that, that can cause bitterness in our husbands. And another thing could be a problem is acting like his mother. A man doesn't want to be mothered. They don't need another mother. So don't act like your husband's mother. Don't use sex as a weapon, and contentions can also pinch off that lovey-dovey feeling that you have towards each other. So let's talk about power. The power in the marriage relationship. Go back to 1 Corinthians 7:4. 1 Corinthians 7:4, they're talking about the power, and that power is that ability to satisfy. And it says, the wife hath not power of her own body, but the husband. And likewise also, the husband hath not power of his own body, but the wife. And it is God's plan. It's God's way. He's saying it very clearly here. I don't think he could be more clear. It's God's plan that we have this power over each other. I feel that's one place I really feel powerful. Power, yeah, because everything else we're supposed to be submissive in. So this is a blessing. There are vast differences between the male and the female, as you know. And the woman was made for the man and not the man for the woman. So like I said, we're separate creations. Men respond to sight. So this is proved in Matthew 5:28. So let's go to Matthew 5:28. So they are stimulated by sight. That's why we have a whole pornography industry aimed at our husbands, right? So, sadly, men respond to sight. Matthew 5:28, but I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. So that's why we want to dress modestly, because we don't want men to look at us in the wrong way. And because I came out of the world and I was dressed terrible and terribly wrong. But God gave me this verse within months of getting saved. And when I went to church, I didn't want to wear, when I saw the other brothers at church, I'm a brand new Christian, I didn't want to have something low where they could look down and see something they ought not to see. But God gave me that right out of my salvation. I mean, he just said, you don't want people looking at you. And sometimes the reason he dealt with me that way is because I was so bad. I mean, he might not have to ever talk to you like that, Elizabeth, but to me, he has to talk like that because I was horrible. And anyway, and I didn't want men to look at me. And I saw, it said with her already in his heart. So it showed me that I was going to be responsible. If I dressed like that, I was with her. It was going to be on me too, not just on the guy that was looking at me. So go to Job 31:1. So you want to make sure you dress so that a man is not looking at your rear end or your cleavage or anything else that would stimulate him in the wrong way. Job 31:1 says, I made a covenant with my eyes. This is because men are stimulated by what they see. I made a covenant with mine eyes. Why then should I think upon a maid? Because he's really trying not to. And go down to verse 7. If my step hath turned out of the way and mine heart walked after my eyes, blah, blah, blah. So his eyes, that wandering of the desire, those kind of things would be a problem for a man. Remember, David's sin with Bathsheba started with him looking on the rooftop that night. So a man's sexual drive comes from, he sees something and has a sexual thing happen in his body. But we don't as much. Like somebody might, so it says touching is a problem for a woman. And you know what? I'm not even going to go there. Just, it's better for a man not to touch a woman. It's better just not to be hugging other men and being clasped to their chests. And I mean, we're in different churches, and every church, some are handshakers, some never shake hands, some grab you and hug you. I mean, it's just always different. So I have a plan. I have the A-frame hug. So if a guy grabs me, I get my hand, I put my hand here, and I hug him around the neck. But I do not want my body. I just don't. I don't want that for me. And so it's called the A-frame, see? Like the ladder thing. I try to get my hand out there first. And sometimes they're oblivious, they don't know. So I just don't want it. And because the touch is really so serious for a woman. Okay, so we talk about that power. Let's think about this. Let's go back to 1 Corinthians 7:5. And now we're going to talk about participation. And in 1 Corinthians 7:5, it says, defraud. Do you know what defraud means, anybody? Cheating. Isn't that awful? We don't want to be cheaters. We don't want to cheat somebody, right? I was amazed when I really thought about what that word meant. And it says, defraud you not one the other in your marriage relationship, except it be with consent, for a time that you may give yourself to fasting and prayer and come together again, that again Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. Have you ever thought about the sexual part of your marriage as being a spiritual battleground? It's actually spiritual. It's not just your flesh. It's actually, like we said, because it says Satan tempt you not. So that's a way you can open the door and have the devil in your marriage. And boy, we don't need that at all. Go to Ephesians 6:12. And it says in Ephesians 6:12, so we wrestle not against flesh and blood. So we wrestle not. It's not a fleshly thing, like I said, but against principalities and powers, rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So we don't want the devil in our marriages. This is an important thing. And defraud means cheating. You don't want to cheat your husband of the marital relationship. And that's just the bottom line. Let's go to Proverbs 5. We don't want to be cheaters. So Proverbs 5, it says, verse 15, drink waters, this is talking about the marriage relationship. Drink waters out of thine own cistern, and running waters out of thine own well. Let thy fountains be dispersed abroad, and rivers of waters in the streets. That's that flowing instead of the ebbing thing. Let them be only thine own, and not strangers with thee. Let thy fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. Let her be as a loving hind and pleasant roe. Let her breasts satisfy thee at all times, and be thou ravished always with her love. And why wilt thou, my son, be ravished with a strange woman, and embrace the bosom of a stranger? So this can be a problem if you're not having sexual relations, if you're not working on the marital relationship. It can cause temptations that ought not to be. I had a brother-in-law that was an insecticide person. He would go through it. He said women met him in nightgowns all the time. People, well, you don't understand this because you guys have pure hearts. But there's women out there that are trying to get your husbands into terrible situations. I'll just tell you, I had a personal thing happen to me. I was in a laundromat in Panama City, and a man came over and started talking to me. He started talking to me, and I don't feel comfortable after a while. Like I said, yeah, the soap's over there, kind of thing. But then I just didn't, I felt weird. So I just stopped it. I didn't think, I can witness to him later. No, I stopped. So I stopped talking to him. He goes to the next lady, starts talking to her. They go out in his truck and have sex. Right there. And just like that, that lady didn't know that guy. But this thing's going on. We just don't know it because we're in our own bubble, but people are having casual sex all the time, and they're after your husband. It doesn't matter to them. It's not a marriage, it's just like an animal thing. And you don't think that, I don't know what situations your husband's working and stuff like that, but it is a real thing. And if we take care of business the way we're supposed to take care of business, then that's going to just decrease that kind of thing going on. And I didn't even want to say that to you guys because I know that was a shocker, but it just happens to be so. And we need to make sure we're doing what we be and not cheating and not defrauding. Go to Proverbs 6:24. In Proverbs 6:24 it says, to keep thee from the evil woman, from the flattery of the tongue of a strange woman. Go down to 6:26. For by means of a whorish woman, a man is brought to a piece of bread, and the adulteress, look at this, will hunt. There are hunter women out there. They will hunt for the precious life. Go to Proverbs 23:27. and 28. It says, "For a whore is a deep ditch, and a strange woman is a narrow pit. She also lieth in wait as for prey, and increaseth the transgressors among men." So we got to protect our husbands by not defrauding them. And there's other ones as well. Something about she wipeth her mouth and saith, "I have done no wrong." And this is this very situation I have seen played out in people very close to me. It is not just something out there, but these women are everywhere, and they don't care. So another thing, if we don't have and if we're defrauding our husbands, it can lead to insecurity. And the defrauded one, whether it's a man or woman, they're going to wonder if they're even loved or desired. So that defrauding is important there. Defrauding is selfish. It is the ultimate consideration for the other to make sure that you have the right balance in your marriage relationship. And it also talked about consent with a time and fasting and prayer and all that kind of stuff. But there are times where it's just not going to work, especially sickness, things like that, time of the month, those kind of illness. And sometimes you're just too sick, and that's all there is to it. But if the other person knows that you still had a desire and still cared, then that would be important rather than just be cold and shove them away. So also, let's go to Proverbs 7. The Proverbs 7 woman is the bad woman that took great pains to get illicit sex from a young man. And she took such great pains that I thought to myself, maybe we should think of some of these things ourselves that would be a blessing during a marriage relationship. So let's look at Proverbs 7, down in first look at 5. That they may keep thee from the strange woman, from the stranger which flattereth with her words. For at the window of my house I looked through my casement and beheld among the simple ones, I discerned among the youths a young man void of understanding, passing through the street near her corner, and he went the way to her house. In the twilight, in the evening, in the black and dark night, and behold, there met him a woman with the attire of an harlot and subtle of heart. She is loud and stubborn, her feet abide not in her house. Now she's without, now in the streets, and lieth in wait at every corner. So she caught him and kissed him, and with an impudent face said unto him, I have peace offerings with me. This day have I paid my vows. Therefore came I forth to meet thee diligently, to seek thy face, and I have found thee. I have decked my bed with coverings of tapestry, with carved works, and with fine linen of Egypt. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let us take our fill of love until the morning. Let us solace ourselves with loves. For the goodman is not at home. He is gone on a long journey. He hath taken a bag of money with him, and will come home at the day appointed. With her much fair speech she caused him to yield. With the flattering of her lips she forced him. He goeth after her straightway, as an ox goeth to the slaughter, or as a fool to the correction of the stocks, till a dart strike through his liver, as a bird hasteth to the snare, and knoweth not that it is for his life. Look down at number 6. I'm sorry, 26, please, for me. Number 25. Let not thine heart decline to her ways. Go not astray in her paths, for she hath cast down how many? Many wounded. Yea, many strong men have been slain by her. Her house is the way to hell, going down to the chambers of death. So this is very, very serious. But look how she prepared. She got this whole scenario, she prepared for it. And sometimes we don't even do that. Sometimes we don't have that anticipation or have a take it or leave it attitude, and that laziness. And So what I guess I'm trying to say is I guess I can learn a little bit from here that she used words. We can use words to the good. She prepared. We could use preparing for having a marriage relationship to the good. And I tell you what, I gave this message somewhere, and I told everybody they needed to get some lingerie, and you would have thought they were all Amish. They had no clue. No clue. Get something pretty to wear. Get a candle, like you get older, candles are good. Cellulite, candles are good. Perfume is good. Yeah, music's good. Get some nice, gentle music, right? Get a book on massage. That would be a blessing. I'm just telling you. I'm sure you all have another idea. I'm sorry if this is uncomfortable for you. But I mean, you see it on TV all the time. Why are you blushing here? Right? But anyway, so you want to prepare. You want to have that candle. I have to give you you're not going to like what I'm going to say. I don't know if you know this, Dee Dee, but my mom. So please don't think I'm being crude. She said, never say no. Isn't that amazing? She had 9 kids. Never say no. That was the only advice she gave me. 3 words, never say no. But you just try. It's not a big deal. You can put yourself out a little bit, take an extra shower or whatever. So we want to be prepared physically, not be exhausted. We want to think about lovely thoughts about our husband, and don't let the cares of this life rob you of this great pleasure that God has in store for us when we are married. Don't let the devil rob you of it. It's a real blessing, and it's worth working at. It's worth stepping back, looking at it, thinking, how can I improve this thing? One last thing. Let's see, we have just a few minutes left. It says in Proverbs 31 that the heart of her husband doth safely trust in her. When David and I got married, we promised each other, as if we had to, but we promised each other not to discuss those things with anybody else. And our husbands, the heart of her husband doth safely trust in her. He should be able to trust us that we're not divulging things that we ought not to say to others. It should be something just between the two of you. Discretion, I think that's part of chaste conversation that's talked about somewhere else in the Bible. And discreet, in Titus 2, discretion, chaste conversation. You should never talk about it with somebody else. And never, 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 never. It's nobody else's business. So let's go back to Proverbs 5:19 and finish this up. In 5:19 it says, let her be, that means ready to participate. It says, as the loving roe and pleasant hind. I think for me that would be being prepared with a loving and pleasant attitude. Let her breast satisfy thee at all times. So, to me, that's being able to satisfy each other. And then it says, be thou ravished always with her love. So the marriage relationship is meant to be pleasurable, a wonderful gift of God, and essential to our marriages. And let me just read that opening thing that I said. The key thought here is the 3 basic things to remember in finding God's blessing and personal enjoyment in the marital relationship. Intimacy is good and designed by God. It's meant to be mutually enjoyable, and it's based on giving rather than receiving. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you for this time with these precious ladies. I pray that you would bless them, each one of them, in their lives and in their intimate lives with their husbands. At different stages of our lives, it's different, Lord. I Pray that you would bless each one. I pray you'd bless each marriage, that they would be stronger, that you would pinpoint things that we can each do, me too, Lord, to make my marriage better. And I pray this in Jesus' name, amen.